breaking news, the Baltimore Ravens are sending their 2026 and 2027 first-round picks to the Las Vegas Raiders in exchange for Maxx Crosby.
This was the volcano that people across the league were waiting for to blow, and it blew on Friday night.
What would have been the biggest trade of the offseason has gone left faster than a NASCAR race.
This is a wild story. Based on what they saw, the Ravens did not feel comfortable to pass him on that physical, which nullified the trade. And Trey Hendrickson reaches an agreement on a 4-year deal with the Ravens that will keep him in Baltimore. Now that leaves us, as the new league year opens today, in certainly an unusual spot, because Maxx Crosby is now a Raider. His money is back on their books.
Welcome to NFL Live. We're here with Dan Orlovsky. We got Louis Riddick, Adam Schefter. Lots to get into today. You just heard from Maxx Crosby. We're going to start with that. Okay, starting in Vegas, where this time last week, the NFL world stunned after Baltimore has decided to back out of the trade for Maxx Crosby due to those medical concerns that arose during a physical. Yesterday, Crosby spoke for the first time since the failed deal, did not hold back. This is on his own personal podcast.
I didn't get to see the GM at all. I thought I was going to see him when I first got there. I didn't see him for 5 hours. I went back up, and I dap him up, and you could just tell, like, the energy was a little bit off. And the GM was standing in, like, the hall, like, in the room next to me to the right. And that was the first time I seen him. And, you know, I'm just in my head, like, this is a whirlwind. Like, I'm so excited, like, fired up. You know what I mean? Like, this is a new opportunity, whatever. And you could just tell the energy was off. Like, I dapped him up. He had, like, a blank face. The Ravens guys called me and it's like, yo, we're trying to figure this out. You know, we're gonna get this done. Don't worry. Like 5 minutes later, CJ calls me. It's like, they're backing out. I'm like, holy shit. So I'm like frozen. I'm like, what the f***? I'm livid, confused, the whole nine all in one. It happens for a reason. I know exactly who I am. I'm healthy. I'm crushing my rehab. I'm doing what I'm doing. I wasn't supposed to be in Baltimore. And that's it. You know what I mean? I'm meant to be a Raider. It's through my damn core. And that's it. You know what I mean? I'll leave it simple as that.
Okay, Louis, a lot to take from that clip. What's your reaction, your first reaction, when you hear from Maxx Crosby and just some of the honesty there?
It's amazing how important first impressions are, isn't it? Whether you're dealing with someone just on a personal basis, you know, out in public, or you're dealing with someone when it comes to business. And Max could tell right away that something was off with this. Obviously, he's talking about Eric DaCosta, about the way in which he kind of greeted him. You know, Max, when he talked about on that podcast about the long flight, the drive from D.C. up to Baltimore, the fact that he really didn't feel like he was really being, like, courted, like treated like someone who a team had just given up 2 first-round picks for. And look, I know I've been involved in these kind of situations to where when you're bringing in a player who you really covet and you've given up a lot for, you treat him like a king. You treat him like someone who is going to be a premium primetime player for you. You don't have blank looks on your face. The GM doesn't wait 5 hours until that person has stepped in the building to then go ahead and introduce themselves. That's not how you conduct business like that. And you feel bad for Max because this was a big situation for him. Moving across country, moving your family across country after you have spent your entire career at one place is a big deal. So you should be kind of afforded that kind of respect. So that's number one. Number two, I think when you hear him talk about the fact that he is happy, or rather, I shouldn't say happy, he feels as though he was born to be a Raider and that he's a Raider through and through. I can speak to that. I don't know how it is now out there in Vegas, but I can tell you this. When the team was in Alameda and we were playing in the Oakland Coliseum and guys like Lester Hayes and Mike Haynes and Matt Millen and Fred Biletnikoff and those guys were coming around, and Jack Tatum and George Atkinson, you know what it felt like to be an old school Raider. And it is a sense of pride that it's hard to really put into words. And Max has all that. He has all that. You can tell he has it. And you just kind of feel bad for the guy considering everything that he's overcome in his life, in his career, that he had to go through this in the first place. I hope he winds up staying in Las Vegas, to be honest with you. He deserves to be a Raider from beginning to end.
I bet you the Ravens wish that Maxx Crosby didn't have his own podcast, like you were kind of saying.
About that.
This is a bad look for Baltimore. At least if Max's side of the story is real and true, and we have no reason to think it's not, it's a bad look for Baltimore. I'll kind of flip it forward. I think, one, because there's probably a lot of question marks still of like, okay, what is his knee actually like?
Yeah.
We'll know, I would imagine, because if the Raiders decide to hold him.
They're saying it's all on track. That's coming from the surgeon that we know is very credible.
Right. And so I would imagine if the Raiders are going to continue to hold on to Maxx Crosby and not move him, that they've got to be confident that he's going to get healthy and get back to the type of player he was. Or if they're going to be overly aggressive in moving him, maybe they have their own doubts. So I think we'll have a little bit of an understanding as this goes. I think the second part is, how does this non-trade impact their timeline in Las Vegas? Because they are without 2 first-round picks that they were thinking they were going to have. And so after all that free agency spending, it was kind of like, could they get competitive in the next year or so? Now without those 2 picks, how do they pivot, at least from what their plan was in the now and maybe in the next 6 to 12 months?
Adam, we're all kind of feeling this way that maybe it does make more sense for Maxx Crosby to stay in Vegas. What more can you tell us about what you're hearing about his future there?
Yeah. Laura, look, there are a lot of options out there. There are a lot of ways this still can go, but the overwhelming way that it looks like it's trending and tracking right now is for Maxx Crosby to remain a Las Vegas Raider. The trade talk started when he didn't want to be there anymore. And now he himself is saying on his podcast that he does want to be there, that he wants to be a Raider for life. And as long as he wants to be there and other teams wouldn't be willing to give up what Baltimore was in light of what happened here in the last week with the medicals, then clearly the overwhelming likely path here is for him to stay in Las Vegas. He goes back there. This team is tracking with the arrow pointing up right now. Spent a lot of money in free agency, have the number 1 overall draft pick expected to be Fernando Mendoza, have some weapons on offense, and Maxx Crosby obviously would help this team get to the next level. The other added bonus to going back to Las Vegas, and people don't point this out, by coming back from Baltimore to Las Vegas, Maxx Crosby saved over $10 million on his contract because there's no state tax in Nevada. He should be thrilled that he's back there right now because he just made millions by essentially not passing the physical. It works out very well for him, for the Raiders, while the Baltimore Ravens go their own way.
Yeah, look at this. I mean, here you go, Max. It's working out better than you thought. I do think, Adam, he probably decides he doesn't really want to be traded when he looks at some of those moves that you're referencing that the Raiders made. It makes sense. They look like a much better team than they were when he even got traded. And if you're here for the pettiness of all this, the Raiders do not play the Ravens next season. Unfortunately, we will not see that. All right, let's check in. That's true. All right, Dan. Let's check in on a Miami team that's signaling they're ready for a rebuild. Moving on from key pieces, the latest being star wideout Jalen Waddle, who's headed to Denver. A major hit to the Dolphins' offense, a big boost for that Broncos passing attack. Let's check in on them and hear a little bit more from Jalen Waddle himself now in Denver.
I think I'm just bringing another playmaker to the team, someone that can help out and, try to make plays the best of my ability. It's going to be a fun group. They got a lot of talent, Court, Marv, Troy, Pat, Lil Jordan. I'm here to help in every, fashion, making plays and learning. I'm excited to learn from them and them to learn from me. So it should be fun. It should be great.
Hey, Waddle's been one of the most productive receivers in the NFL over the last 4 seasons, averaging 10 yards per target. That's the best in the NFL among 26 players with at least 400 targets since 2022. Last season, the Broncos receivers averaged 9th fewest yards, per target. You can see the difference in the instant boost that Jalen Waddle will add. And Dan, what can the addition of Waddle bring to this Broncos passing game that felt like this is kind of the one piece they needed to solidify?
Yeah, explosive pass plays, and it's really the part of their offense that I would tell you was the weakest element. Waddle is a complete receiver. I don't want to just paint him as just a vertical threat. He can run all routes, middle of the field, in breakers, catch the ball, do something with it in the yards after the catch game, absolutely. But he is a vertical threat as well. His ability to make the big explosive plays down the field is absolutely one of his strengths. And I would sit here and tell you, as much as I've liked watching Denver's offense, and there's been this evolution under Sean Payton that it's sprinkled a little bit of like the college element in, it hasn't looked like I expected it to in totality when it comes to like the Saints stuff, which was notorious for the play action chunks, the 20 to 25 yard big throws, and then the big ball down the field. This answers that. They haven't had that guy that was consistently going to be that Jalen Waddle is. This was a very, very good football team. This was the one spot you can truly make a case they didn't have. They do now.
Yeah, Lewis, when you think about the other receivers they have on this roster in that group, how does Waddle mesh with what those guys look like on the field?
Well, the cool thing about it is that they're all interchangeable. You'll see Cortland Sutton playing the slot. He'll play the X and the Z. You'll see Jalen Waddle. He can play the slot, the X. Troy Franklin can play the slot, the X to Z. Marvin Mims, he's a catch and run guy. A guy who's just explosive with the ball in his hands. Pat Bryant, he's a big physical slot player who really is kind of like, some of the wide receivers that Sean Payton had when he was in New Orleans. Think of guys like Marcus Colston, who really just chewed people up with a bigger body on the inside. So what Jalen brings you is in a different package. He brings you that same versatility, but he has the juice down the field. I mean, the guy has legit, when you're standing there as a secondary player, you're going, where's 17? And if I'm one-on-one with him in any way, shape, or form, you're looking, what leverage do I have and where's my help? What leverage do I need to take and where's my help? And what that winds up doing is it winds up making you get distracted with from everyone else, and it's just going to open up the entire offense. And if they can get the run game going, if Davis Webb now as the new play caller can get the run game going, the play action passing game is going to get going, as Dan just alluded to, the Broncos are going to level up big time.
Yeah, Lou, this is how I think they're going to use him. He's going to play the slot for them initially. They'll move him out sometimes to the Z, but he's going to play slot for Denver, and they're going to utilize him there. And if we remember back in the day, Sean Payton was in New Orleans when they traded for Brandon Cooks, and Brandon Cooks brought an element of explosiveness to the Saints offense. I think the Broncos believe that Jalen Waddle is capable of bringing even more explosiveness to this Denver offense, complementing Cortland Sutton and giving Denver the type of big-time weapon that it lacked that would make Cortland Sutton better, make the other receivers better, and they think he's going to elevate the whole offense largely from the slot.
The other side of this, of course, is Malik Willis going to Miami and now has a really thin group of wide receivers. We'll continue to keep an eye on how they can help him. But rebuild, it's going to take a while. We're just getting started on NFL Live. Mel Kiper's latest mock draft has quarterback Ty Simpson landing with the Jets. Can the Alabama QB turn things around in New York? Dan and Lewis have more thoughts on him. Plus, another QB prospect hoping to rise up the draft boards. Penn State's quarterback Drew Aller had his pro day today. Hear what Lewis says he needs to improve to be a pro-level star. Could he be a quarterback your team gets in a later round? We'll be right back on ESPN. Fill a big hole in their offense from Stefon Diggs, who's still an unsigned free agent. Last season, Diggs had over 1,000 yards receiving. The next three highest totals by the Patriots receivers were in the 450 to 550 range. Now, New England did add Romeo Doubs in free agency. Mel Kiper Jr. releasing his latest mock draft yesterday has wide receiver Casey Concepcion to New England out of Texas A&M. Lewis, how do you like the fit there for the Pats?
I like it a lot, Laura. They need a guy who is tough and able to run, even though that's Omar Cooper right there. But there's Casey. He's a guy who's a do-it-all type of guy who can play three positions, who can really, though, again, control the middle of the football field. He's one of those dudes who average almost 7.5 yards of yak per reception, which is just ridiculous. And he's got just tremendous open field running skills, as you see right there. So I think he fits perfectly with what they have and what they don't have.
Let's go to Baltimore, where the Ravens could get some much-needed help on the offensive line. Last season, the Ravens' tackles were great when pass blocking, but were 22nd in run block win rate. According to ESPN Analytics and NFL Next Gen stats, their guards were middle of the road in both pass and run blocking. Plus, Baltimore is going to have to replace their center, Tyler Linderbaum, who went to the Raiders as a free agent. Mel's got the Ravens taking offensive tackle Spencer Fanu at 14, a replacement for Tyler Linderbaum. A young replacement, though. He's talented. Dan, do you like this pick for Baltimore?
I do. It's a need. Fanu can kind of play anywhere inside or outside of the offensive line. The interior of the offensive line for Baltimore is a big issue. It became a weakness last year. I think Fanu's feet, his athleticism, and also remember, Declan Doyle is the new play caller in Chicago Baltimore, who comes from Chicago. Athletic offensive line, being able to pull is going to be a necessity. It's something Fanu can do. I think this is ideal for Baltimore.
Finally, to New York, where all eyes are on what they'll do this offseason at quarterback. To say it's been a tough run of quarterback play for the Jets would be an understatement. Each of the last 8 seasons, the Jets have ranked 26 or worse in total QBR as a team. That stinks. The Jets' last quarterback to rank top 10 in the league in total QBR was Ryan Fitzpatrick. That was back in 2015. Although the Jets just signed Geno Smith, Mel thinks there's still help on the way. He has him taking quarterback Ty Simpson out of Alabama at number 16. Adam, what are you hearing, though, about the Jets playing a quarterback?
Look, that's always going to be a possibility, Laura, but I think the people around the league seem to think that the Jets will take a quarterback later on, especially with the idea that they have 3 first-round picks next year in the quarterback-rich draft of 2027. That'll be a difficult decision if and when Ty Simpson happens to be there at pick 16, but I think a lot of people believe the Jets need to build up their roster. They have a lot of holes they need to address, and right now the best way to do that would be a pick not on a quarterback. But Ty Simpson is going to be awfully tempting for this New York franchise when its turn rolls around at 16.
Yeah, if you ask Dan, they should just keep drafting quarterbacks over and over again over as many years as it takes to get a quarterback that sticks. But specifically on Ty Simpson, I know you're a fan of his. One of the knocks on him that people have is the lack of starting experience. There's a lot of reasons why it happened that way. But do you think that's a big enough issue to say, hey, no, don't draft him that high?
I don't. This is probably the thing that I am most interested in talking about leading up to the draft with everybody, because I believe it really should be quality over quantity. We've seen a lot of guys drafted in the NFL that had a tremendous amount of college starts. Some guys have become really good players. Some guys have just become okay. Some guys have been bad. So it's not just, oh, you've got all the necessary starts, and that means that you're going to be good. Quality over quantity, and his tape is so good from a quality perspective. I also think this, and this is what I kind of wanted to talk to with Lewis, and again, I want to talk to everybody about this specifically, is, Lou, do you think we have to maybe evaluate the starts that these quarterbacks, and maybe other guys too, but quarterbacks get differently in this college NIL era, right? Because certain quarterbacks are getting paid a certain amount of money, and that means that's the guy that's going to start for this school because of that, and that means the starter has got to go elsewhere. Is that a valid discussion to be had about why guys may have a certain amount of starts?
Yeah, I think it's part of it. I think, yeah, you definitely have to do some digging as to why the depth charts play out the way they do, why certain guys don't get on the field. Is it something that kind of transcends the actual meritocracy that is supposed to exist in sports, or is it kind of partly business? I think now with the way NIL has taken off, obviously that's going to be a part of it for sure. Look, I think with Ty, look, I've had this discussion with numerous different people. Okay, the GMs are always trying to mitigate risk, right? They're trying to reduce the risk of being wrong. And one of the data points that they point to the most is number of starts. It's like the number of starts, hand size, height, weight, lower body composition, all these things that are kind of like objective statistics that they can then go back to and say, this is why I took a guy, this is why I didn't take a guy. And whenever I hear that really being thrown out there about a player, I go, well, then why the hell do we watch guys at all? Why don't we just get to the combine, measure them all, and then let them throw, and don't even take into account what they do and what the quality of their tape looks like? Because look, I'm with you on Ty Simpson. His tape, the quality of his tape, whether it be from under center, from the gun, 3-step, 5-step, play action, move the pocket, layered throws, timing throws on the outside, swing passes, halfback wides, Texas, I mean, all those kinds of things, running when he needs to, getting hit in the face, having no running game, and continuing to stand in there and fire. I'm going, well, what does all that count for?
Yeah.
What is all that? I mean, how does that look to you? You know, because, and I guess it would be nice if you had 30 starts instead of 15.
Sure.
I just don't think he's going to last very long. And I think if he goes to the right place, Dan, and he's to be able to sit behind a good veteran quarterback with a great offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, there's going to be some people who really regret not taking him.
That's kind of, I feel like I do a lot in the NFL right now.
Right.
6 years ago, it was a ton of RPO and space. Now it's, let's get back under center. Let's go play action. Let's go chunk. And it does make me ask the question, because of the college football world. Okay, well, why was Jalen Milroe the starter at Alabama 2 years ago? And then why is Alabama so dead set on going to Austin Mack? And then where does that leave a guy that some people are like, man, this guy's a really good player? And so I just think that focusing on he doesn't have enough starts, to Lewis's point, it's such a small reason why not to draft the player?
It's a lot more complicated than that, right? It was a different offensive coordinator. Jalen Milroe had Tommy Rees as his OC. I think they really liked Milroe's legs and what that brought to that specific offense, that skill group. That factored in a lot.
Does that take 5, 6, 7 starts away from him where he would have been at 22?
Probably,
exactly.
Yeah. I think there's some reality to that. You have to look at some of the college football story and all of this to really get the full picture. Adam, I know you wanted to add on some of this. I'm also curious, are you hearing other teams talk about Ty Simpson and being interested outside of, a lot of this conversation around the Jets?
Well, the one thing that's become obvious in talking to multiple front offices in recent weeks is that they believe that Ty Simpson will squarely be a first-round pick. And the whole question is, where is he going to go in round one? I know a lot of people had wondered if he would go there. Then he played well enough early on. He was going to be a high one. Then maybe people thought he would fall out. I think it's become obvious in talking to these front offices in recent weeks that it does sound like he is absolutely expected to be a first-round pick, and now we wait to see where he goes. Mel's got him to the Jets at 16. That wouldn't be the first time the Jets have gone Alabama quarterback at 16. They did that with Joe Namath. They did that with Richard Todd. Now we wait to see if they do it with Ty Simpson as well.
A lot of the conversation around the lack of starts, I get it. But one number that I think really tells the story about who he is as a quarterback, 5 interceptions in 523 attempts, 21 touchdowns, 1 interception in his first 9 games last season. This guy set an Alabama record for the lowest interception percentage. That's pretty impressive. 2
of those interceptions were on 4th down.
Yeah, good point. Exactly. It would have been even better. He still set the Alabama record. That's the type of quarterback that he was. All right, at least there. And will be. Still to come. After some big trades this week, including one from today involving the Eagles. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, Laura, a short time ago, the Carolina Panthers traded Andy Dalton to the Philadelphia Eagles for a 2027 7th-round draft pick. Dalton is somebody that the Eagles have had their eyes on for a while. Now they make that deal. He'll have to pass a physical, of course, but Dalton is headed to the Eagles. And a short time ago, the Denver Broncos passed Jalen Waddle on his physical. We keep bringing up the physical in light of everything that happened in the last week with Maxx Crosby. Waddle passed his physical. The trade is now official. He's the newest member of the Denver Broncos. The Dolphins get 3 draft picks back. The Broncos get back Waddle and 1 draft pick, and the Broncos have a new slot receiver to play opposite of Courtland Sutton. And also moments ago, Justin Fields passed his physical, and the trade is official with the New York Jets and the Chiefs. Fields goes to Kansas City for a future draft pick in the 2027 draft, a 6th-round pick. The Jets get back a pick for a player that they obviously were planning to move on from, and the Kansas City Chiefs get a backup to Patrick Mahomes, who's recovering from a torn ACL. Now take a look at this. Last year, from the start of the new league year to the NFL draft, there were 15 total trades. Already, in the last week, since the new year started 1 week ago, there have been 18 trades, including today's trade of Andy Dalton, but not including the one for Maxx Crosby. There already had been 3 more trades this year in 1 week than there were the entire offseason leading up to the draft last year, and we're not done yet. This league has gone trade crazy. It has picked up the intensity of trades. Trades have now become the norm. They've really caught on. This was a league that never did this in the past, but now trades are more prevalent than ever before, and the numbers are there to bear it out.
I love it. I think it's great for the league. I want to get your perspective on it, Adam, in just a moment. I know Adam likes it, right? He's tweeting out, he's breaking out all these newses. It's great. Lewis, it's plural news.
Are you right on that?
No, I don't think I'm right.
Sweet. I'm right.
Dadgummit. All right, Lewis, 18 trades so far already in the new league year. Why do you think trades are more of a thing than they were in the past?
Well, I think there's 2 reasons. One, I think timelines are condensed now as far as the amount of time that a lot of these GMs are being given to turn franchises around. I think, patience has run thin, and so guys are going to use every vehicle at their disposal, every method at their disposal to try and improve the football team. And one of the ways you can do that is by calling up your buddies and seeing if you can kind of work out a deal player for player, player for picks in a way that maybe you couldn't in the past. And the reason why, look, a lot of these GMs now, they've all come up through the ranks together. They were all either college scouts on the road who used to bebop from, from Oklahoma to Texas to Baylor to Texas A&M, down to Rice, down to Houston, and just make that trek throughout the country. And, you're having dinners together, late nights on the road, and, at truck stops, at restaurants, at little, Denny's restaurants, and then you're going in and watching tape together and talking about players, and you develop relationships. As you move up through the ranks, you become general managers. It's easier to pick up the phone and call a guy and say, hey, look, man, there's a guy who I have in mind who I really like on your roster. Maybe there's some people or some picks we're willing to get off up from us. I think this could help you. You could help me. And the friendship kind of allows you to kind of have that kind of conversation. And these are how these things kind of keep going, which I think is great because it's made it exciting for us. And it's made it easier. Well, not easier. It's given them another way to kind of try and improve their football teams.
I wonder, so it's certainly a new philosophy. I wonder if it has a little bit to do with the 2027 draft, that everyone continues to just say, as much as you can set your organization up for whether it's picks or cap space or flexible contracts that you can unload or whatnot, young talent, that draft class has got the chance to be one of the best we've seen in a while. I think this is a different alternative to build your team now in regards to waiting on free agency and maybe overpaying for agency. It'd be great to see like a data collection of over the past 5 years of free agency has paid X amount of dollars to all these players. What players do we think prove that contract to be worthy, or kind of the money doled out rather than to a trade? Compensatory picks, I would imagine that's part of this as well.
I would say this, though. Look, we ourselves at ESPN have put together, research that says that the teams that have been very active in free agency, especially over the past couple of years, who have really come out and made splashes, they have kind of really improved their win total. And that does fly in the face of conventional wisdom. Sure. I've been on teams where we were very active in the first 24, 48 hours, and it didn't turn out to be anything near what you wanted it to be. It's feast or famine. Look, you just have to be very strategic with it when it comes to free agency. But I really do think it's the relationships that exist between these GMs right now that are allowing them to kind of do some of these moves.
Well, and so many people changed spots, right? And so now they're saying, okay, well, I trust this player. I know what he's going to bring to the table. I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to bring this guy in. It helps when he knows on the other side that the trade is possible. Adam, you brought this up to us, a full peek behind the curtain. This was something you wanted to get into today. Why do you think this is happening right now in the league?
Well, they're talking about the relationships. I think the biggest factor is that we have a new breed of GMs. It's a younger group of GMs. It's a more aggressive group of GMs. And when we look at some of the teams that have had the greatest success, they have not been afraid to make trades. If you see Micah Parsons dealt, if you see Sauce Gardner dealt, if you see Quinnen Williams dealt, then anybody could be dealt at any point in time. General managers, young and eager, they're not afraid to pick up the phone now and say, hey, what would you take for that particular player? We saw it this week with the Denver Broncos and Jalen Waddle. It's a copycat league. And it used to be, in my mind, in my world, the busiest times of the year were free agent week, draft week, and the week when the regular season ended and coaches were fired and hired. In the last few years, what has nudged its way into that list is the trade deadline. I think that right now has become as busy a time as free agency. If we look at the number of trades that have been made at the trade deadline in the last few years, it's skyrocketed. And so teams are used to making trades at the trade deadline. They've continued that into the offseason, into free agency, and the start of the new league year. And there's nothing that these general managers and front offices are afraid of anymore, because the best front offices are being active and aggressive in pursuing trades, so everybody else is.
Yeah, it makes me think of, did this start a little bit with almost like, and you guys could speak to it greater than I, but Les Snead. Yeah. And it was like the whole F them picks era. And it worked. And it was all these trades, and it works out for both parties a little bit. And then I think that's a little bit attached to, some individual organizations that realize how good it is right now. I would reference Baltimore and Buffalo. Okay, we've got these quarterbacks. They're MVP winners. They're great players. We can't just sit on our hands. We've got to be, what Adam is referencing is maybe overly aggressive, because I don't want to be the general manager that has this guy and this roster and we don't get it done because maybe I didn't make that move.
Go, Adam.
The other thing is it's the other way. It's the other way of exploring a way to improve your roster. Teams, I believe, have gotten better and better at identifying young players that they want to keep and sign to long-term extensions. So if they're signing those players, then the free agent market isn't quite as strong. And when the free agent market isn't quite as strong, what can you do to improve your roster? You look to trades. And so you call teams and start inquiring about players. And that also has contributed to the uptick in trade activity in recent years.
Go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, there's just two quick things I would say. The one thing that you don't want to do as a GM, though, is mistake activity for achievement, right? You just don't want to be making moves to make moves because everyone else is doing it. But the most important part to me is this. The teams that are really going ahead and really capitalizing on this, it's because they nail the third phase of team building, which is development and utilization. That's what they nail. They are able to not only pull off these trades, but it's the coaching staff that then develop them and utilize these guys are the ones who are really saying, hey, they're making other teams go, hey, I want to get in on that. But you better just make sure that you have the same kind of competency in place to develop and utilize these guys that the teams that are right now knocking it out of the park.
You brought up the Bills. I mean, we saw some of this aggressive nature even in the coaching cycle when guys said, listen, we're going to move on from coaches that we didn't necessarily expect to be moved on from. They wanted to make that change in these windows, especially with the quarterbacks. And Adam hinted at it. There's going to be more trades. Maybe A.J. Brown. Maybe there's some names out there. And we'll be all over it here on NFL Live. Coming up on ESPN, quarterback prospects hoping to rise up the draft board. It's going to be a big conversation. Drew Aller out of Penn State is one of those players. His pro day was today. Here's what Lewis wants to see more from